Greetings and welcome to Professing Alls. My name is Ryan. Welcome back to Biblical Greek with Ryan. Today we're going to be looking at the Greek letters. We're going to be looking at their order and their names. We're going to deal a little bit more with phonics, which is the way that they sound, and combination vowels and combination sounds in a future video. But we're just going to be primarily looking at the order and the name of the words today. Now, I just want to point out that the pronunciation I'm going to be using is modern Greek pronunciation. So if you're used to Erasmian pronunciation, which is generally the standard way of pronouncing Koine or classical Greek, then that would be the reason why that some of the words that I might say and the pronunciations I might give are a little bit different. It's just because I'm using modern Greek pronunciation, not Erasmian. Now I'm going to explain a little bit about the difference in a later video, but just for this video, just know that I'm using modern Greek pronunciation, which is one of the ways that you can pronounce Koine Greek, either modern Greek or Erasmian. So I'm using modern Greek. Okay. Now the first letter of the alphabet is alpha. Alpha. It is pronounced A as in father. Alpha. The next letter is Vita. Vita, which is this letter here. It does look like the letter B, and in Erasmian Greek it is pronounced B as in bat, and it's pronounced beta. That's the name in Erasmian Greek. In modern Greek it is Vita. Vita. So it pronounces as V as in vase. The next letter is Gamma. Gamma. Now, if that guttural G sound is a bit hard for you to produce, just use a normal G. Gamma. Gamma or Gamma. The next letter is Delta. Delta. It is pronounced with the TH sound as in this or that. Not the TH sound as in throne, that hard th sound, but that soft the sound as in this and that. Delta. The next letter is Epsilon. Epsilon. It is pronounced E as in egg. Epsilon. So let's say those letters again. Alpha, Vita, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon. The next three are nice and easy because they sound very similar. The first one is Zeta. Zeta. Zeta is pronounced pronounced with a Z sound as in zebra. Zeta. Zeta. The next letter is Eta. Eta. And it has that long E sound. Eta. Eta. And then the next letter is Theta. Theta. Now, theta has that hard TH sound. So delta is a soft TH sound as in this and that. Theta has the TH sound as in throne or thin. Theta. So zeta, eta, theta. The next letter is iota. Iota. Now, some of these letters, so eta and iota and epsilon, which we'll learn a little bit later, produce the same sound. They all have that E sound. Now, these letters are generally classed as vowels, but really they're kind of semi-consonants. In English, we have one semi-consonant, which is the letter Y. Now, a semi-consonant is a consonant that can perform the role of a consonant or a vowel. So the letter Y in English can be pronounced Y as in yacht or yes, or it can be pronounced E or I as in my or sigh, or sly, I should say, or fly. Okay. So just like English Y can be either consonantal or vowel, so too iota, because the letter iota, when you write the word, you have I-O-T-A, or iota, omega, tav, alpha. Because the iota is followed immediately by a vowel, it has to take that consonant sound. At least in modern Greek. In Koine Greek, it can take that vowel sound. I do apologize if you're hearing some motorcycles outside. The audio isn't really that great here, but we make the most of it. So, iota, but it pronounces that E sound, that same E sound as ita, or a Y sound like yes or yet. Iota. Kappa. Kappa. Now this one's nice and easy, both iota and kappa, and actually a lot of these letters do look like English letters. The reason is the alphabet that Greek got their alphabet from was the Phoenician alphabet, which is the same alphabet that the Latin alphabet derives from, which is what the English use for our alphabet, which is the Latin alphabet. So there are going to be similarities. So letters like iota and kappa look like I and K, which makes them easier to learn. And even ones that are different, there are appearances of similarities. So for example, delta, you can definitely tell that lowercase delta is a D. Lambda. Lambda. Lambda is pronounced with an L sound as in leg. Me. Me. Now, I have transliterated the name me with M-Y. Now that Y, the reason why I write Y instead of an I, because it looks like saying my, but it should be pronounced me. Because to transliterate epsilon, you have to use a Y and not an I, because an I means iota, or a long I, which means eta, or a long E, which means eta. So using that Y just means that in Greek, the name me is written mu or me, epsilon, rather than me iota or me eta. So that's why it's written my, okay? So it's pronounced me, but not pronounced my. But doesn't matter what you call it, it's pronounced It has that M sound. Then we have ni, which has that same instance of the Y there. Ni. Now, it's very important here, you have the letter ni, the lowercase. It looks like a V, but it's not a V. Same with eta, looks like a H, it isn't a H. So some letters you have to adjust your ability to read them and associate them with different sounds. And when you're reading Greek, I mean, it's naturally a different language, so naturally you're going to put different sounds on it, but just be careful not to use the wrong sound for particular letters. So this is ni. And it's also very important to have that sharp pointed edge, because in epsilon, you have the same letter, but it's got a curved bottom rather than a pointed bottom. So you have ni, which comes after me. The next letter is xi. Xi. It is pronounced like the letter X, but English, when we see the letter X, usually we don't have the KS sound unless it's at the end or in the middle of a word like 6, 60, fix, things like that. So at the beginning of a word, usually we read it as a Z, like xylophone, but in Koine Greek, they always, or in modern Greek, they always pronounce it x. So it doesn't matter whether it's the beginning of a word or in the middle of the word, it's always pronounced x, x. So you got xi, xi. Now notice the transliteration is xi. That's because the way that it's written in Greek is xi iota rather than xi epsilon, like me epsilon or ni epsilon for me and ni. Okay. Omicron. Omicron. Now, Omicron is actually a name that contains two words. You have O, which is the sound, and micron, which means small. So it's small o. You also have a letter called omega or omega in modern Greek because the sound between o and o dropped out of differentiation over time. So you have omicron and omega. So you have small o and big O. The next letter is P. P. Now, a lot of people pronounce this letter pi, and it's the same with Xi. A lot of people pronounce it Xi, but that's just an Anglophone way of reading that. So when you see PI, in English, if that was an English word, we'd say pi, because it looks like PIE, which is pi, right? A pi. But in Koine Greek, or even in modern Greek, they wouldn't pronounce it like that because you need a pi alpha iota to create that pi sound. So because it's spelled P iota, it's pronounced P, not pi. So the name of the letter is P, not pi. Just like the English letter P is called P. So you got ro, ro. Now some people pronounce it with a trill, sometimes with a roll of the tongue. Sometimes people just pronounce it like a normal R. So you can call it ro, ro, or ro, but not like a French R, so it's not cro. So you don't need to worry about that sort of a sound. Now, once again, be careful. A ro is an R, not a P. So it looks like the English letter P, but it's a R sound. The next letter is sigma. 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 Now, sigma is a unique letter in that there are two lowercase forms. There is what's called the pre-final form, where if the letter appears anywhere in a word before the end, it's going to look like this sigma. Now, you've got to be careful. It does look like omicron. So in English, if you're doing cursive writing, you might put a little squiggly line off from our letter O. Don't do that in Greek because it looks like a sigma. So a sigma has that little squiggly bit on the top, and omicron doesn't. The next sigma is the final sigma. So if a sigma ends a word, then it's always going to use that sigma. So that's the only difference between these two. Now, getting back to some of the writing, now the way that I've written these up here is the way that I personally write these letters, and the way that I think most modern Greeks would write the letters. Sometimes when you see different types of calligraphy or different sorts of writing or different manuscripts from different periods, the letters might be written slightly differently and there might be some extra curly bits. So for example, C, for example, might have a little top like zeta. Pi, sometimes you have bits coming off the end here. So in mathematics, you might see pi written like that in mathematics. Sometimes you do see that in manuscripts as well, but in modern Greek, they just stick to what's simple. Just like, any style of writing, the simpler it is, the easier it is to write, and therefore that's the way we're going to write it. So the way that I'm writing it is how a modern Greek would write it, but just realize that there could be variants. But the variant, like, if you learn these, you'll know what letter it is when you see whatever form it is. Okay. The next letter is tav. 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 And it has the T sound. Tav. Ypsilon. Ypsilon. Now don't be confused. Epsilon and epsilon. Okay? Epsilon, epsilon. Next letter is phi. Phi. Once again, you might be used to hearing it as phi, but it's phi. The next letter is chi. Chi. It has that guttural h sound. Now, some places in Greece pronounce it more like a H, so he. but you still got a little bit of that guttural he in the back of your throat there. But others, it's very predominant guttural he, but it's more he. It's sort of in between that. Then you have psi. Psi. Now it looks like a trident because the name of the god of the sea is Poseidon in Greek, or Psidon. So you have psi as the first letter of his name, not pi, or p, I should say. So you have psi, which is the first letter of Poseidon. So in Greek, it's actually written ps, and then you go on with the rest of his name rather than pos, as what we have in English. But in English, we don't put ps at the beginning of a word. We can say lips, so we have ps on the end of a word, but we don't have ps as the start of a word unless the p is silent, like psychology. So psychology comes from a Greek word that has psi at the beginning, and because we can't say that ps sound at the beginning, that p drops off, and so we say psychology. We just use the s rather than the ps. But words in English that start with ps come from Greek because the Greek word has psi at the beginning. Lastly, we have omega. 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 Right, so these are the letters of the alphabet. Now, that's enough to get you started. Now, just learn the names, just learn the order. You can start learning how to write them. And next video, we're going to start dealing with pronunciation a little bit and the difference between Erasmian pronunciation and modern pronunciation. And then in the following video, we're going to be looking at not just the individual letters, but also combination letters and diphthongs and things like that. So it's good to see you here and good to have you here. I hope you're enjoying these videos. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you enjoy these videos, share it with people. If you know someone that wants to learn some biblical Greek and they want to have a crack at it, well, bring them on board. All right, we'll see you next time.